UK to provide Ukraine with twice as many Challenger 2 tanks as promised. Ambassador.
Here's a summary of the article.
Ukraine will receive twice as many Challenger 2 tanks from the UK than London originally promised. Ambassador of Ukraine to the United Kingdom, in an interview with Radio Liberty. According to Pristyko, the UK promised Ukraine 14 Challenger 2 tanks, but following the results of President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Britain in February, it was agreed that this number would double. The ambassador said that the UK is gradually forming a consensus regarding certain types of weapons through its decisions. Quote, "It was the same, by the way, with tanks. It was a breakthrough moment when it was necessary to move the reluctance of all other allies. And, if you remember, despite the fact that the announcement was made, the official confirmation by the Prime Minister took almost a week for him to officially repeat it," Pristyko said. At this time, the British were trying to convince all the other allies that there were two options. Either the UK proceeds with this announcement alone and makes this breach that everyone else has to go into, or let's do this very important step all together as one front, as NATO. The UK was successful this time. I think the same process is happening now with fighter jets, he added. Ukrainian tank crews arrived in the UK for training on Challenger 2 tanks at the end of January.
This post received a score of 6,800, with an upvote ratio of 96%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Greater than. According to Pristyko, the UK promised Ukraine 14 Challenger 2 tanks, but following the results of President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Britain in February, it was agreed that this number would double.
It was delivered as promised. It always works and nothing is suspected.
What do you mean? UK tanks have already been delivered?
He means that there was probably 28 tanks promised but they announced 14. Not sure about the UK though. I know there were reports some of their military officials were worried about drawing from so many of their working units. They have a lot that are in need of work. It's possible they assessed those and they're not as bad as originally thought. Given that recent report, I'd be surprised if they're worried about giving away tanks when it sounds a lot like they've got no fuckers to crew them anyway. With that said, I'm not sure what the actual worry is. Whilst we need to have a standing force, and a good one, a little lending shouldn't be a concern. We don't need them right now. And if we did, that means all of NATO is at war.
Lending is probably not the right word here. I don't think the UK are expecting these tanks returned, and nor should they. They are sending these tanks into combat after all.
Thank you, Britain? Question mark, 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 exclamation mark.
Hopefully they come fully stocked with tea and Bakewell tarts.
Bet these lads would fancy a dutty curry and a six-pack of lager, to be fair.
If a tank came with a keg, I would defend it with my life.
The Challenger 2 is generally considered to be superior to most Russian tank equivalents such as the T-72 and T-90 in terms of armor protection, mobility, and accuracy of its main gun. So they're getting some good stuff.
I think saying that the Challenger 2 is generally considered to be superior is a little bit of an understatement.
Remember those Russian dissidents that were poisoned on UK soil?
And you know the woman who wasn't connected who actually died due to Russian state.
Along with the police officer who was poisoned and the restaurant worker who was exposed to radiation.
If I recall, this is likely because they're going full throttle on the new Challenger 3 tanks, correct? The UK is sending a large amount of their active inventory of Challenger II, so they must really feel that they would be able to produce them quickly enough if needed.
That, and the truth is tanks are largely considered an offensive weapon to the British Army. Our defence is tied to the Navy and the Air Force. So whilst it does diminish the Army's capacity, what little it currently seems to have, it's a fairly safe gamble that doesn't impact the most important thing, which is national defence.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.